Hafa and welcome to your Year in Review. I'm Clint Rigel. For the next hour, the entire news team and I will count down the top 10 stories of 2013 that impacted our community. And we start with number 10, the spread of invasive species, namely the little fire ant and the coconut rhino beetle. Back in May, PNC learned that the rhino beetle had spread throughout the entire island of Guam. The Coconut Rhino Beetle Eradication Program Chief of Operations Roland Kittigwa told PNC that the beetle, which started out in Tumon, can now be found in every village on island. But he says the battle against the beetle isn't over yet.
We have found damage and caught rhino beetles in all villages. We have not found breeding sites in all villages, but basically we can say that the rhino beetle has spread throughout the island of Guam.
Coconut Rhinoceros Beetle Eradication Program Chief of Operations Roland Kittigwa says that although the beetles have made it out of the quarantine zone in Tumon, where they originated, and spread throughout the island, they aren't giving up. In fact, he says in June he'll be conducting a series of workshops for both the public and private sector with some new technologies and techniques that they're using against the beetle.
Have we lost the battle? And the answer is no.
Kittigwa says that Tumon is a good example of this. Although some areas, like Ipao Beach, seem to be totally devastated, the trees there are still alive. And the trees in the surrounding hotels, like the Hilton and other areas in Tumon, are very healthy. Kittigwa says this is because the trees are being managed properly, which means all their flowers and coconuts are trimmed regularly and green waste is properly disposed of. So how can you tell if a tree is infected? The telltale sign is triangular-shaped leaves that almost look like they've been cut. If you see triangular-shaped leaves accompanied with noticeable boreholes where the beetles literally dig into the tree, then it's infested with the rhino beetle. The rhino beetle can kill coconut trees by eating the heart of the tree. Kittigwa says they are still using some biocontrol agents. Specifically, they've released a fungus that is killing the rhino beetle, just not fast enough.
It's a fungus that's very specific to the rhino beetle. We have seen that this fungus has been killing and is being auto-disseminated. What's happening is our crew can go into the jungle areas, cut down a dead coconut standing trunk, and when it hits the ground and we split it open, find dead rhino beetles in there all covered with green fungus.
The beetles lay their eggs in rotting wood. They hatch as worms or grubs which feed off of this rotting wood, which is why Kittigwa says the key to controlling the beetle is controlling green waste.
Is the battle over? The answer is no, but the reality is we're going to have to manage our trees from here on out. And the biggest problem that we have is the green waste. We have to manage our green waste, and something has to be done about that. And it's not just you and me, but we have to get together as an island to handle this.
The rhino beetle isn't the only invasive species to make the news. Another new invasive species also continued to infest different sites around the island. The little fire ant. In August, former PNC reporter Josh Dukenko learned that no funding had been identified yet to even begin the eradication of this new pest.
Back in November 2011, PNC reported on the South American little fire ant that was found in Primos Hartville and Jigo by the Coconut Rhinoceros Beetle Eradication Team. The most recent invasive species to Guam is 1/16 of an inch, or as long as a penny is thick. It doesn't build mounds and nests under rocks, leaves, or pieces of bark. It also easily falls off trees and should not be confused with much larger ants. It has spread to places like Hawaii, Florida, New Caledonia, and the Galapagos. Fast forward to today, the little fire ant has been identified in 12 to 14 different sites around the island, including various sites in Jigo, Piguat Maritzo, Umatic, Santa Rita, Nimitz Hill, and Barragata.
This is kind of what we've been worried about.
So they just drop all over the trees here? Or?
Yeah, pretty much all over the place.
University of Guam entomologist Dr. Ross Miller took us to the home of Barragata resident John Concepcion off Bellow Road to show us what a typical site looks like. Concepcion says he noticed the ants a couple of months ago.
We noticed coming out of the jungle that like the back of our neck is always itchy, like some parts of our arms, and we really don't know what's biting us. You know, we can't tell, we can't see them.
Once they're established, the price of eradication just goes through the roof.
Right. It wasn't until Dr. Miller and his UOG team came to Concepcion's residence did they know what was the problem.
They're looking around for the rhino beetles, and they came across the fire ants.
Oh, wow.
So that's when they educated us about both rhino beetles and fire ants at the same time.
Aside from the rhino beetles also infesting their property, Concepcion mentions the fire ants have moved into his brother's home next door. He says his family's doing their best to deal with their unwanted house guests.
Well, I mean, you can't help it. You come across it, they're going to bite you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're going to sting you, whatever they do, but it's just so small that they're everywhere. It hurts. Yeah,
And show us like what happened to you. You just got.
Oh yeah, see, I just got bit like a couple of minutes ago, and it's actually all irritating. I'm just scratching, and that's just one ant probably.
Dr. Miller says the little fire ant infestation is probably 3 to 4 years old. However, it can be eradicated in places like the Concepcion property, which is just around an acre. The problem is that funding to do the eradication work has been a challenge.
We've not been very successful, even though we've tried many sources of shaking funds loose to do the eradication. It's not cheap. Really do a good job, probably $250,000.
Comparing that to the millions of dollars of loss that the ant could cause to tourism and public health, Miller believes $250,000 is a good investment. He warns if left uncontrolled, the fire ant can take over the infested area, cause pets and domesticated animals to go blind, and endanger agriculture, organic farming, and the overall quality of life.
That means that a park like Ipao Beach, for example, very popular park, if the little fire ant gets into there, it'll be up in the trees. As if you sit underneath the trees, the ants are going to fall out when the wind blows, which is most of the time. They'll also be in the grass, so that you really can't sit in the grass. You'll be stuck sitting in on the cement pavilions with a spray can.
Dr. Miller says they are going to talk with the Guam Visitors Bureau for help. He doesn't think funding has been proposed in any of the upcoming budgets for the next fiscal year. He also says the eradication team already had meetings with the governor and lieutenant governor, and while some money was freed up for the biosecurity division, he says it's not enough. Dr. Miller mentions the devastation the fire ant has caused can be found in Hawaii on the Big Island, where eradication is no longer an option. But how do you eradicate this invasive species? He says EPA-approved pesticide distinguishes bait. Miller describes it as a sticky goop that is sprayed on trees. The worker ants are attracted to the goop and bring it back to the queens.
So the workers then carry that food back to the queens, and over a little bit of time, the queens ingest enough that it kills them. You kill the queen, you kill the reproductive capacity of the colony, and the ants are gone.
He explains this process can take at least 2 years, which is more of a reason eradication efforts need to happen as soon as possible.
Guam has been through a lot, and this is just another instance that anything that we do that changes the ecology of the island affects us all.
Josh Tikenko, PNC News.
We now move on to the 9th top story of 2013, the opening of Guam's first charter school. In August, the school welcomed all 524 of its students on campus to begin academic instruction. PNC's Betsy Brown reports how that day went.
It was the day school director Donna Dwiggins had been waiting for the last 3 years. The first day of classroom instruction at Guahan Academy Charter School. The school opened for orientation last week, but this was the first time all 524 students were on campus at once.
I was really pleased that we had last week to bring the kids in here in smaller groups. So when they came in today, they pretty much had the lay of the land, right? They knew where their classrooms were located, and so we had posted around on all the outsides of the two buildings. We had posted up the class lists so that they could find their grade and then find which classroom they were in.
All 22 of the classrooms in the two-building campus are being used for regular classroom instruction, with Chamorro, English as a second language, art, and Pacific Islands culture teachers rotating in and out of the classrooms.
So we actually have filled up every one of our classrooms with each grade level, right? And the ancillary program, so to speak, will come into the existing classroom, take over while that teacher has a planning time, and then they'll deliver the instruction within the classroom.
Guahan Academy is not yet on the federal meal program, so the school is taking care of the cost of breakfast and lunch for the students this week, while a memorandum of agreement is worked out with the Department of Education's Food and Nutrition Program, which will allow parents to apply for the free and reduced meal programs. Meals were served in the classroom during orientation, so today was also the first day food service vendor BNG served lunch inside the cafeteria. For the school's youngest students, it was a new concept altogether.
This is our first day. They're serving a hot meal from the cafeteria serving line, and it's served on trays. So the little kindergartners who you saw just a few minutes ago, this is literally their first day to carry that lunchroom tray and kind of get used to that routine.
So what's unique about the charter school? According to Dwiggins, more time is scheduled to master reading skills than in other public schools. And she says the direct instruction curriculum allows the school to group students by skill level.
So if a group is starting off kind of behind the curve, below the curve, then we're going to really be on top of that group looking to see how we can accelerate their learning so that we can catch them up. And one way is simply having that extra time, and the other way is trying to really target and be very specific about the skills we're teaching them and making sure that's matching up with what they need.
Guahan Academy Charter School is the first public school on the island to open independent from the Department of Education. Betsy Brown, PNC News.
We'll stay right there. The top 10 in 2013 PNC's Year in Review continues after this.